Jane's work has united trainers, breeders, rescues, and pet parents around one shared goal, giving puppies their very best start. She has helped over 80,000 puppy culture fans around the world. And today she's here to share her wisdom with the Doodle Pro community. A common concern I hear from new puppy parents is I can't take my dog out yet because they haven't gotten all their vaccinations. And
Right.
that would be dangerous. So you keep talking about the socialization window, this opportune time that ends right at the same time that all the vaccinations would be
Mhm.
finished. So, what would you say to someone who's feeling anxious about early socialization before their pup is fully vaccinated?
Perfect. Okay. So we have to divide this into two parts. One is socialization pre vaccination, so very early socialization. And the other is socialization after one vaccine. UC Davis did a study, and it's a very good study, okay? Not all studies are created equal. Some don't
Yes.
have a big enough sample size, some don't go across enough different demographics, but this was a really well-designed study that looked at puppies who had been 8 weeks at least when they got their first vaccine and started puppy class a week after their first vaccine. So, one vaccine on board, puppies at least 8 weeks old, and they started puppy class a week after that first vaccine. And they looked at puppies across the United States in all different demographics. And out of, I believe it was 5,000 puppies, not one got parvo,
Mm.
not one got sick. Nothing in life is guaranteed. But when you do the risk benefit analysis, the chance of your puppy developing a behavior problem by delaying socialization past the critical socialization period is enormous.
Mm.
The risk of your puppy getting parvo or some other distemper or some other preventable disease after they've had one vaccine, at least 8 weeks old, and waited a week, minuscule to really statistically zero.
Yeah.
So it's a no brainer. I do not understand. It's shocking to me that some veterinarians and breeders still recommend this because it's the American Veterinary
Yeah.
Association, International Veterinary Associations, they're all in accord on this. But there it is. It still has to be said.
The American Vet Association, ASVAB, formally released their statement saying that statistically, your dog is more likely to die from euthanasia, behavioral euthanasia, under the age of 3 than by these diseases that we're not letting their paws touch the ground to. And we are saying this out of love for these pups. It's not cavalier.
No,
It's just, I imagine you as well has seen the fallout from when dogs haven't had positive intentional socialization and exposure until 16 weeks.
I think it's more of a problem with some breeds than others. I think it's less of a problem in our breed, but I think with some of the more perceived to be delicate breeds, like your smaller breeds, and yes, people
Yeah.
are. I will say also, we do have a puppy course for puppy owners. It is the course actually that you mentioned that we started during pandemic, but then we developed it further and
That's
added
right.
material and yeah, made it into a course. And we have a private discussion group. And I would say literally 95% of the questions and problems that we have to work through with people are related to one of two things. Either the breeder told the person not to socialize, and
Mm.
Now it's a problem. Or the breeder didn't do any crate and confinement training. We can come back to that. But yes, it's just, I see it uh, a lot. And it's really a stark difference.
Yeah. And if you're anxious about it, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I wouldn't bring my 8-week-old puppy or 9-week-old after 1 week after their first vaccination shots to a dog park. That is not a good idea for many reasons. But if I were to be nervous, we can use the stroller or sling while they're a little pup. Or I think it was even in that program you talked about open the trunk of your car and let them observe from afar
Absolutely.
bicycles and the truck going by. And that's positive in itself because it's giving them the distance. We're not trying to
Right.
flood our puppies and overwhelm them with things. That's just that bicycle's safe.
Absolutely. And you raise a good point that it's counterintuitive because people think, I'll take my puppy to Petco because it's
Mm,
friendly. Not a good idea. No,
right.
there's going to be a lot of dogs of unknown vaccination status. And by the way, remember, I'm not trying to talk you out of going to places with your puppy. I'm trying to talk you into it. But that having been said, you really don't want to go to places where there's a high density of dogs that you don't know. It's very appropriate if you have a friend that has a good adult dog or another puppy to set up your own play dates. It's very appropriate to take your puppy to places like the bank, the garden center, outdoor restaurants where you can sit with your puppy and have them in their little bed and let people come by and give your puppy cookies. These are all great options. The dog park, Petco, and I'm not calling out Petco, but the
No,
pet
just any
supply
pets.
store,
Yeah, any of those pet
right?
supply stores.
Not a good idea.
Yeah,
Tractor Supply is dangerous because a lot of people take their puppies to Tractor Supply to socialize them. So I try and just stay to places where there aren't a lot of dogs.
yeah, I like to go to human places.
Human
And
place.
I completely agree. When we're talking about the fallout that we see without socialization, if we were to flip that and just the big differences that you see with puppies raised with early protocols. And I mentioned a little bit of my personal observation with confidence and just being more optimistic. But what do you see and what is reported to you? I know you've got quite 80,000 members of puppy
We
culture.
do.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank goodness. What are the biggest differences long term that you see with these pups?
You're not handing over a behavioral project. It's what it is. It's that the puppy owner has a job, right? The puppy owner has to get out and do their thing. It's not
Mhm.
like the first 12 weeks are totally magic, but the difference is that those puppies, it's really a blank slate. The puppy owner doesn't have to go to behavioral mod boot camp. The puppies are stable. They're not going to freak out the first time they see something unusual. They've been actually taught that novelty is a positive thing, that they're novelty seekers for the most
Yes.
part, as opposed to neophobic, being afraid of new things. So this is just a hole that the puppy owner doesn't have to dig out of. You're
Mhm.
not starting from counter conditioning fears as a puppy owner. You're starting as, hey, you get to do all the fun work. You get to go out and socialize your puppy, and your puppy's happy to meet people. And you don't have to worry about the breeder's done all that groundwork for you. Within the framework, which is framework of that puppy, the puppy owner is getting the best version of that, which is going to be a more optimistic, positive puppy that is an enrichment seeker.
Do you have any advice for when people have a dog who didn't have this opportunity
Right.
of going through puppy culture? Is all lost or what they could focus on working on now?
Oh, yeah. Great question. And again, what I show in puppy culture is very much what I would do with my fosters, with my rescue fosters. So I would start from manding, the loose leash walking. Anti resource guard exchanges are not going to be the same because you're dealing with an adult dog. but definitely anti-resource guarding exchanges. You just have to go through Gene Donaldson's protocol, the whole protocol, not the truncated one that you do with puppies. Recalls, yes, absolutely. You can make an enormous difference. And the thing is, with a rescue dog, you may or may not get as far as you might with a puppy that had the absolute best start, but it's so rewarding because you're
Yeah.
making such a difference in a life that had a completely different trajectory to start out with. All is not lost by any means.
Thank you. I completely agree. I'll share in the show notes a link to Jean Donaldson's book, Mine, which is a Bible of resource guarding work.
Anti-resource guarding, right.
Yes. If you could pass one message to every puppy parent or breeder, because we've got some great doodle breeders who listen into about giving puppies the best start, what would that be?
Oh, it's going to be different for the breeders. For the love of all that is holy, please do crate and confinement conditioning with your puppies before they leave your house. Now, I want to clarify, I do not hand my puppy owners puppies that are completely crate trained, but they can eat a meal in a crate and fall asleep and take a nap afterwards. They can be in a pen and take a nap in a pen. Again, the difference for puppy owners in experience between breeders that have and have not done this is just mind-blowing. It's like cutting the puppy owner off at the knee when they don't know if the puppy has anxiety, separation anxiety, the puppy's screaming. Then, of course, the puppy owner goes in and comforts the puppy because what else are you going to do in the beginning? Legit, the puppy's freaking out.
Yeah.
But then you are, as a byproduct of that, teaching the puppy that crime pays because when the puppy cries, it gets attention. So now the puppy's, oh, I know, all I have to do is cry. And it's a catch-22 for the puppy owner. The puppy owner really doesn't have good options. So I always say, attention is the mother of all behaviors. I have a video about that. Crate training and a recall are the king and queen of puppy culture. Because if you can send your puppies home crate trained a little bit, not overnight, not for hours, but just so they don't freak out, so that there's a reasonable expectation that you can tell the puppy owner, look, the puppy may not settle right away, but I'm telling you, this puppy knows to stay in a crate. So he'll fuss a little bit, but he'll go to sleep. That level, okay? Not overnight in a crate, but just that level. And the puppy has a good recall, which is so easy for breeders because all you do is every time you put the food dish down, you do a recall and you classically condition a recall. If
Yes.
you can give the puppy owner those two things, the puppy owner's just off to the races with that.
Right.
So that would be my thing for breeders. If I had to say one thing that I'm asking you and telling you as a gift to your puppy owners and to
Yes.
me, for puppy owners, if I had to give you one thing, I'm going to assume that you're going to socialize your puppy. That if you are listening to this and you're part of the Doodle Pro family, you already know that you got to get your puppy out. In fact, I hear that there's going to be a great book coming out on lists of things like charts and schedules and stuff that you can do. And that is fantastic because just in this conversation, as we're discussing, like, hey, a bank, who would really think bring my puppy to a bank or do this, go to a garden center? So that is so fantastic to have that. My advice to you, though, is to always make sure that every experience is a positive one.
Yes.
So it's not enough that you go down a list and expose your puppies to things. It's not enough that you go to puppy class. These have to be positive experiences. So you always have to be watching your puppy and looking at your puppy's reaction and gauging, is it in fact a positive experience for this puppy?
Absolutely. It's one of my passions after having raised a dog who didn't came to me after the kind of those windows had closed and the rest of her life we were going uphill with her feeling safe and confident.
Right.
But I love thinking of socialization as doing positive deposits in their little bank account for each of these categories, different textures, sounds, a black dog, a cream dog, etc. And eventually there's going to be withdrawals that we won't be able to avoid. But if
Yeah,
we can make as many positive deposits, and puppy culture is putting so many of those deposits in before they ever even come home to us.
absolutely. I think the thing that most people don't realize is that the emotional sensitivity that allows puppies to imprint a good experience with as little as one exposure. It's really, in my observation, a hypersensitivity to classical conditioning. So, whereas with classical conditioning, normally it would take many exposures to get that classically conditioned response. In the sensitive socialization period, with one exposure, you're getting the positive response, and it's durable in a way that classical conditioning with an adult is not. But the catch is that it cuts both ways. So if the puppy has a bad experience during that time, it also is going to imprint on that puppy. So avoiding bad experiences, for instance, making sure you go to a positive trainer like the Doodle Pro, making sure that the puppy is never handled roughly by anybody, doesn't have any bad experiences with other dogs, that you curate and control all those experiences. Very important. How you teach something is much more important than what you teach.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. For those of you who are listening who hadn't heard Jane's work or speaking before, I know you're a new fan as well. And if you're a breeder, there's a course that Jane has from newborn to new home. And I will link to that in the show notes. And then for new puppy owners, there's with open arms and a level head. Do you mind sharing a little more on that one?
Well, that's the one that we talked about that
Yeah.
was started during pandemic. But then I put it together and expanded it into a course, and its focus is the first 2 weeks that you bring your puppy home. So it's about foundations. How do you drive your puppy home in the car? How do you transport your puppy? What do you
Yeah.
do with your puppy the first night? Is the first night different from the fifth night? How do those first days look? What kind of schedule do you set up with your puppy? I think that a lot of there's a lot out there about training puppies, but not about really just literally what do you do with this puppy when you bring it home?
Yes.
So that was the real gap that I saw. And that is what this course is. It's more about becoming okay, here's the difference. Sending your kid to school, you have to send your kid to school. The child has to learn how to read, how to write, and you can have a master's in education, but that doesn't mean you know how to be a parent.
Right?
This course is literally how do you be a parent?
You got this puppy in your arms. What the
Right.
heck do I do tonight?
Puppy. But truly puppy parenting.
Thank you so much. And you can hear just with the breadth of experience that Jane has why I asked her onto this episode, but also I reached out and asked, can you please contribute a couple lines to, you mentioned my new book, Your Doodle's Daily Schedule Blueprint. And just because I'm honored to have any of your thoughts and be able to share them with doodle parents everywhere. So thank you so much, Jane. Make sure you catch her podcast, Madcap Radio. It's a fantastic listen. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.